I've been having a think since the last video that I made about what to cover next in regards to this whole cluster B subject, and I briefly touched on it in the last video that I made about codependence. And even though it's a little bit outside the area of discussion, I thought that would be interesting to do a video about codependence, because this is something that I've suffered from for my whole life, and that I'm currently attempting to rid myself of. And it's also something that definitely plays into becoming a victim of cluster B disordered partners. So without sort of getting into the psychological ins and outs of codependence, I just kind of wanted to do a video based with my thoughts on it, how it forms, how it affects you later in life, and how to rid yourself of it. So codependence, it's funny actually, if you talk to people who aren't educated on it, they seem to sort of misunderstand what it actually means. And most people think that codependence means basically that you can't be alone, that you need a partner. But it's actually, it's not that. It's pretty much, it's a pattern of behavior that's learned in childhood, which tends to lead you into abusive relationships, where you become generally the abused partner. So codependence is one of those things that's formed based on your family of origin, the relationship between your parents and your upbringing in general. So I kind of wanted to explain a little bit about my sort of upbringing and give you an example of how things that happen to you as a child can really mess you up as an adult. So, you know, I had a mother, I still have her, I have a mother who is very emotionally unstable. You know, she's not diagnosed with anything, but certainly even from a very young age, I kind of always knew there was something not quite right there. And this really kind of affected my entire childhood, because I had a mother who was unstable and, you know, had really bad self-esteem issues, self-worth issues. And essentially my interactions with her were largely negative, but they would sometimes be positive. But what she basically did was use me as a sort of counselor / sounding board from when she was having problems with my dad. But the thing is, as a kid, I didn't really understand the dynamic that was going on between my parents. And my mother always used to paint my dad as being cold and abusive. But I know different now. As a child, I kind of just believed whatever she said, because the thing was, my dad would never discuss his relationship with me, which is appropriate. It's not appropriate to discuss your marriage with your 5-year-old son, you know. But, you know, so he always just kept everything to himself, and generally he would actually just defend my mum. Even if I kind of had a problem and tried to talk to him about it, he would just be like, don't talk bad about your mum, you know, she's your mum, you've got to respect her, that kind of thing. Is just staunch like that. But my mum, on the other hand, you know, I can only really imagine what my dad went through being married to her for, you know, the best part of 20 years. You know, their relationship fell apart a couple of years ago, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to my dad. You know, he's got a new partner now, and he's happier than he's ever been. My mother, on the other hand, who was the one who left, is exactly the same as she's ever been. She's also got a new partner, but guess what? the problems that she had with my dad, she now has the same problems with the new boyfriend. This will be familiar to anybody who's, had experience with a cluster B. Generally, they're the common denominator in all of this. But a little bit more about how my mother used to be, So I used to get all of the complaining about my dad, how he didn't love her, how she thought he was cheating on her. All of this is nonsense, by the way, By the time, so I grew up kind of very anti towards my dad for a lot of years and always swearing like I never want to be like him, And I was also kind of being conditioned to have this kind of attitude of listening to women's problems and things like that. And the sad fact is, this was when I got the most attention, would be if my parents had an argument and my mother came to me to comfort her through it. So this was the times when I was told that I was loved and how I was such a good son and I was showered with praise and attention from my mother, would always be when there had been an argument. If things were going, well, I didn't get any of that, really. And, my mum was so absorbed with her own issues and her own problems and all of that I was never really given praise or encouragement or anything like that. I was never really pushed into doing, or not even pushed, but I was never really encouraged to go play sport or to, take part in anything like that. In education, I was never really explained why it was important. It would be, I'd get the general message of you've got to do well in school, but it was never important to me. And even at the age of 16 years old, when I was just about to take my GCSEs, I didn't actually really know what they were for. I didn't know anything about university or degrees or A-levels or anything like that. It was just a case of, you should try and do well in these tests. And, I went and I passed them all pretty well. I did quite good in school, but I was never encouraged towards going to university. And actually, once I'd done my exams, it was sort of told to me that you should go out and get a job. When at the age that I am now, I would really love the opportunity to go to university and make something of myself, because I feel that I do have the aptitude there. But it just wasn't a path that I was, really told about. So, yeah, I had all of that. And then on the other hand of it, I'd also get, it's kind of hard to explain this, but with my mum having so many problems, she would often take things out on me. And there'd be situations where she would get incredibly angry at me over something really minuscule in the grand scheme of things, nothing that kids don't normally do. One example I can think of was when I was at school one day, and, this was when I was probably about 8 years old, but I sort of distinctly remember it. And we were running around at break time, and I tripped over and got a hole in my trousers. And, didn't think too much of it. I got home and my mum sort of saw that, and she decided that the best way to, react to that was to give me the silent treatment for a period of about 3 days. It was like I didn't exist. I tried to talk to her. She'd completely ignore me and just stare past me. All those kind of things. And, this was something that would come up over and over again in the following years. And the problem is, when you're a kid, even if you haven't really done anything wrong, getting the silent treatment or, extended punishment from a parent, it has a really bad effect on you, because it's not like you can leave. You can't say, this is bullshit, and pack your bags and go when you're 8 years old. You're stuck there. You live in that house, and you have to follow your parents' rules. And so, if your mother is giving you the silent treatment at home when you're a young kid, that's incredibly painful. And it's something that no child should be put through. But, I went through it. And the problem is, it's like I say, you can't do anything about it. So, you just want it to stop. So what do? or he's an 8-year-old kid, you think, well, there's only one way to make this stop, and then you go and apologise. You know, and you have to apologise for a long time, and you have to keep apologising. And eventually, you know, you get, all right, well, don't do it again, and then your mother will talk to you again, and then it's like, thank God that's over. But you've gone and given a false apology because you know you didn't do anything wrong, so you don't actually mean it, but you just do it to make it stop. Anyone who's been involved with a cluster B female in a relationship will know that feeling, because it's the same thing you do as an adult if you've got codependence, you know. All of these childhood experiences lead you to be someone who lacks the tools to defend yourself against being mistreated, because you've grown up being mistreated. You've not grown up in a stable family with parents who have been appropriate and, you know, given you maybe appropriate punishments for things that you've done wrong, but also shown you love and affection and encouraged you and tried to uplift you. You've been raised in an environment where you've been kind of held down your entire life. So when you're older, that's all you know. And, you know, this is really what codependence is to me. And, you know, I put it in the last video as well. I said that being a codependent and being a quote-unquote nice guy is basically the same thing. And I do agree with that because, you know, I really believe that, I should say, because I was one of these guys that for years, you know, I always used to hear it from females as, you're such a nice guy, you know, oh, I've never met a guy as nice as you. I'd hear that a lot, but, you know, none of the girls who ever said that had any interest in me other than on a purely friends level. And I was always the nice guy, you know, I was always the guy that would listen to their problems and try to help or try to cheer them up and be there, you know, at the end of the phone and never ask for anything back. But, you know, being a nice guy, it's funny because that's it's a phrase that's really misused, because you're not really being nice. I mean, I'm going to be straight up honest here and say that all of these girls whose problems that I listen to and who well, you know, maybe 90% of them, you know, the ones that I really, like, put a lot of effort into, I wanted to get into all of their pants, you know? I might as well just admit it. But back then, you know, I didn't have the guts to admit that or to approach them in a, you know, intimate manner or a romantic manner. So I didn't have the guts to do that because I had no confidence, which again relates to the upbringing. And so, you know, yeah, I would just be this guy who, you know, and I'd talk to most of these women, again, later down the line. And a lot of them actually said that, you know, like when I first met you and at the start, like, I definitely felt something. But then the longer the more time we spent together, you know, then it just seemed like we'd be better off as friends. So basically, you know, what that means is that when they first met me, they were physically attracted to me and wanted to get to know me better. But, you know, you always have this window of opportunity in those circumstances, and that window of opportunity, it doesn't stay open for all that long. So, you know, unless you kind of, you know, I would have a girl say, you know, expressing interest in me and things like that, and then I'd just end up talking to them on the phone and things, and, you know, that window of opportunity would just close around me. Where it's like, you know, if you meet a girl at work and then she adds you on Facebook and spends the next 3 or 4 days like constantly bombing out your Facebook chat, that's your cue as a man to be like, hey, you want to go out sometime, you know, and like get the ball rolling. But if you're bogged down with all these with codependence and feelings of inadequacy and you know, not having the guts that you need to really approach the situation, you ain't gonna do that. And then boom, your chance is gone, because the attraction, like the physical attraction, only gets you so far. And I've got to say this to any nice guys out there who are like being just sponges and listening, sitting there in the hopes that, oh, you know, if I like show this girl how nice I am, she'll be interested in me. Like, no, no, that isn't how it works. For a long time, I did think that was how things worked. I think I watched too many movies or whatnot. And, you know, I always thought that, yeah, if I'm here for her and things, like, she'll appreciate me. But, you know, that just ain't how that's not how attraction works, I should say. I'll give an example on this, actually. So, I met this girl last year, and pretty much what I just told you happened. Like, she added me on Facebook, and, you know, she was bombing me out with messages and texts and all this, and I actually went and hung out with her a couple of times, but I never escalated anything, and I never suggested anything. And it was typical of what would happen would be, you know, I'd hang out and all this for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden, there's this other guy that she's met. And at this point, it's like, man, like, all of a sudden I have to blurt out, like, how I feel about her and all of this. And, you know, of course, this typical, like, weak kind of behavior just got me friend zoned, you know. The thing was, I've been friend zoned so many damn times, and I was sick and tired of it. So she puts it to me, she was like, you know, I basically was like, look, I really like you. And she's like, well, why didn't you say anything earlier? Like, you know, all these times that we went out, like, I wanted you to make a move and you just didn't, so I didn't think you were interested. And, you know, I didn't have a valid reason. Then I was just, you know, a coward. So, you know, we end up having these talks and things like that, and it's like, but she's got this other guy, and he's coming on strong. And of course I get, you know, look, let's just be friends. And like I said, I'd heard that line so many times, and I'd been in that friend zone, and I was sick of it. Like, I was like, I hate it. I hate having I was done with it. And that was kind of like, this was just recently kind of after my borderline experience, and I was like, no, like, I'm done. I'm sick and tired of this crap. So I said no. I was like, you know what? Actually, like, I grew a pair of balls, and I stood up for myself for the first time that I'd ever really done this to a woman. And I said, you know, I was like, look, I know I messed up at the start, but I'm not interested in you as just friends. Like, I want something more than that with you. And if you don't, you know, I followed kind of something that I'd heard on a video online. And I said, look, I was like, I really like you, and I wanted to explore something more. But if you don't want to, then that's fine. Let me know if you change your mind. Otherwise, take care. And, you know, like, she kind of flared up and called me all the names under the sun and things like that. And I was like, you know, whatever. Like, I just ignored it, and I got on with my life. And then that was kind of the point when, you know, I started to research all the borderline stuff and got into fixing my own codependency issues. And, you know, at the time when she kind of put that rampage on me, I thought, I was upset, because I was like, man, I'm never going to hear from this chick again. She's going to hate me. You know, I blew my chance. But I was like, well, whatever, I'll go fix myself up, and, you know, I don't want to mess it up with the next girl I like. So I got into fixing all my bad habits. You know, I stopped being an emotional sponge for women, and you know, any women I was interested to and I started talking to, basically I just got down to business. And you know, I got knocked back a few times, and that's cool, like, that happens. But the funny thing is, this girl, probably would have been like 3 months later, so I hear from her all of a sudden. She calls me and wants to talk, so I was like, fine. I kind of kept it brief, and I got off the phone. And then at this point, it's like she's still seeing this other dude. Like, they're not official or anything like that. So, you know, I hear from her 1 or 2 more times, and I think she was trying to get me into that chasing kind of thing again, like where before I used to chase. But this point in my life, I was busy. I had other things on, and I had, like, another girl I was talking to who I was actually getting on real well with, and, you know, things was going good. But whatever, this other girl keeps on reaching out here and there, and then she'd kind of reach out, we'd flick a text back and forth, and then she'd go. And I'd just let her go. And, yeah, she calls me one night, and I got on the phone, and I guess something like that I'd never felt comfortable really doing in the past. But, you know, I just turned the talk sexual. I never would have done this before. Never. But this time, you know, I just took the initiative, and I took it, you know, down a different path, you know, because she rings me up and she's like, oh, I'm bored, you know, oh. And I'm like, yeah, well, I can think of something to entertain you. And she's like, oh, tell me more. You know, we just started flirting back and forth, and kind of got real raunchy, you know. It's not a position that I'm used to being in, but I played along, it was fun. And, yeah, you know, and then all of a sudden it was a case of like, she's texting me like a hell of a lot. And, you know, I'm kind of playing around with it and things like that. And then, you know, after a few days, it's like, she's like, oh, I want to see you. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, let's go hang out, and set a place. And when I got there, this was quite funny because, you know, this is a girl that blew me off in the past and told me that she wasn't attracted to me, you know, at the end, and all of this stuff. And, you know, we'd had this kind of interaction, and I got there, I turn up, and this girl who, yeah, just had my nuts in a jar previously, and, you know, blew me off. She's acting nervous as hell, like a little schoolgirl, you know? She's going red, she's, you know, like, I'm making a little innuendo, and she's giggling, she's going red, she's playing with her hair. And, you know, I was just like, wow, this whole dynamic changed. Suddenly now, like, I'm just sitting back chilled, like, I'm not overly worried about it. And, you know, I struck up something pretty good with that girl, you know, good arrangement. And this was a girl that previously I had listened to all her problems. She called me only really when she had a problem, or she was upset, or, you know, and then any other time, like if I wanted to talk and I would text her, usually I'd get blown off. It would be like, I'm busy. But these days, that girl, like, I have not had a phone call from her about her problems or any of that since we started talking again. It's almost like she's a different person. Now I only hear from her as fun stuff, you know? And that's a nice place to be in. Like, you know? And there's just a difference, really, between being confident and just standing up for what you want, and not following all that bad programming that codependence puts into, where it's like, you must have women on a pedestal, and, you know, you must be super nice, and you must listen to all the problems, and you must never disagree with her, you know, which is all stuff that you just learn from your interaction with your parents. It's just false rules. So, you know, in addressing codependence, it's to me, like, it's not really a problem anymore. I no longer have that. Like, if I do upset a girl that I'm talking to, and, you know, if it's just a case of she's been over emotional or taken something the wrong way, it's like, fine, whatever, like, I'm not going to sweat it. Whereas before, man, like, I would have sleepless nights over that kind of thing, you know, and I would be doing that, apologizing, and I would chase women, you know, I would be texting her if I hadn't heard from her in a day or whatnot. Now it's like, you know, I just feel my life, I'm busy with stuff. So, you know, and if I don't hear from a chick for a couple of days, it's like, it's no problem, because I tell you what, like 90% of the time, she's going to come back after a couple of days when you haven't texted. It's like, wow, he's not texted back. Like, oh, I got to text him. You know, it's always this battle of like wills, and girls always playing games, you know, especially girls around my age. It may be different for anyone that's a bit older, but, you know, girls in their early 20s, you know, they love it. They love playing games. They love chasing and all that. So, you know, my whole thing on that, not to say that I'm some sort of Casanova now, because I'm certainly not, but, you know, I'm not as pathetic as I was before. And, you know, you look at game and, you know, like guys who teach game, or pickup artists and things like that, and you look at all of their strategies and tips, the main thing is, like, what they're suggesting is basically just act like you're busy and that you have a life where you actually do stuff and that, you know, you've got options. It's like, act as though. But my honest advice on it, especially if you're wanting to get rid of these weak behaviors that codependence ingrains in you, is don't act like that. Actually do it. Like, start having some hobbies and stuff, you know? Like, for me, a big one was the gym, you know, and I started to make a lot more of an effort at work. Between working 40 hours a week and spending like 10 hours a week plus in the gym, man, like, I don't have that much time. Like, I really don't. Like, by the time I finish work and I'm home, I've had dinner, I've, you know, changed, gone to the gym, got back from the gym, had a post-workout meal. It's like 10 o'clock. My day's gone, you know, like, I don't have like hours laying on my bed playing Xbox where I'm only talking to one girl and, you know, if she's not texting me back, I'm going to get all upset about it. It's like, you know, I'm busy. I don't have time for games and I don't have time to, like, worry about that kind of thing. So it's like if I am talking to a girl, you know, I'll talk to her and I'll text her, like, in between doing, you know, living my life. And I don't have hours on end to, like, sit on the phone listening to problems and stuff. It's like, you know, if I get a chick that's text me and like, hey, I want to see you, it's like, yeah, cool, when you free? Oh, Thursday? Yeah, sweet, let's go out and do something. Thursday night, 8 o'clock, I'll pick you up. Yeah, cool, gotta run. Now, you know, that's kind of like the exact style that pickup artists or whatever would teach you. But in my case, like I say, I think it's better to actually not be bullshitting, but you're being honest. Like, it's like, yeah, I am busy. I got stuff to do. You know, like, I don't have time available where I can be your personal helpline. It's like, if you miss me, you want to see me, all right, let's make a time, let's do it. And then you go and you just have fun. You don't hide your attraction to girls, you know, let them know. And hey, if they're not interested, it's like, fine, we'll just play more. Once you've been through a few cluster Bs and you've had your heart broken, like shattered into a million pieces, you do become a little bit more, you know, before I would have said callous, but I think it's just more realistic. And you just stop putting women on that pedestal. As soon as you get them off, you know, you start just to be more honest. There's nothing wrong with telling a chick that you're interested, or, you know, not necessarily telling, but just demonstrating that. And, you know, if you're hanging out with a chick or spending a lot of time on a chick because you're interested in her and she's not reciprocating, it's like, well, fine, you know, don't waste your time on that. So this video kind of like went into a little bit of like dating advice as well, I guess. But really, like I say, the whole codependency thing, I really do think that being a codependent is another word for being a nice guy. Because it just, you know, it gives you like false assertions about yourself. It's like not being good enough or not deserving, and being too apologetic and tolerating bullshit, you know. Basically, one big rule to follow if you're trying to eliminate codependency: don't tolerate any bullshit. If you do that, you've just killed it stone cold dead. It's not an easy thing to rid yourself of, you know. It will take practice and it will take time, and you will find that certain things can trigger you into starting to fall back into old patterns, but you just got to be persistent with it. Once you know you're codependent and you know the poor behaviors that you have because of it, you can start to address them and you can taper them off. Pretty much, you know, it's just time. If you are codependent and you're trying to break it, it's time to just accept the fact that, you know, you deserve to have what you want, and you deserve to be treated with respect, the same respect that you generally would treat other people with. Because one thing about codependents, you know, they're usually pretty patient and kind and tolerant. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, don't let people abuse that, because they will. If you're a codependent like I was, you know, I had all sorts of like freeloaders and piss takers in my social circle who used me for nothing but ego boosts or whatever they could get. I did also have some really good friends, you know, who would always try to lift me up. And those are the friends that I still have now. But the piss takers are long gone. You know, a couple of them I just straight up, when I decided that I wanted to change, I pretty much just straight up was like, I don't want anything to do with you. You're a user. And, you know, you'll be very surprised how those people will just, you know, they'll back off. Like, those kind of toxic, like, assholes that you'll have latched onto you, once you grow a backbone and you actually call them out on their bullshit, they disappear pretty quick, you know, because they don't have the guts to stand up for themselves, you know. So what you're left with is just the true friends that you've got, and that's a good thing. You'll value those people actually a hell of a lot more, and then, you know, you've got room for new friends, and you'll be a lot more picky this time. But yeah, that's just my kind of rambling thoughts on codependence. You know, I just had a whiskey with my dinner, and felt like talking. So, you know, yeah, like, discuss in the comments. I'd like to hear what other people think about this, because I'm probably not the first person to come up with this idea, but yeah, I just made that link between nice guy and codependent. Same thing, it's just different names, but yeah, either way, it's a horrible condition to have. It really doesn't get you anywhere in life. Being direct and being straight up, that's what gets you somewhere. So, you know, and if I can change 20 plus years of bad behavior and start to stand up for myself and go out and get what I'm worth, hell, anyone can do it, because I come from a really weak position, and I'm really happy with my change in that regard. So yeah, any codependents or guys out there, you know, just do the research on it, look it up, and just make an effort to change, because when you do, your life will really, really change. And it's a great thing to go from just being that nice, reliable guy, but who never gets the girl and never gets what he wants, to, you know, wow, being someone who's got options, and not being depressed and feeling, you know, insecure and all that. Get it out. Have a good night, guys.